want to do introductions? You just want to go right into it? I don't know.
I think it's a
time-
small enough group. We could just
go for it.
quickly introduce.
Oh, quickly introduce. Oh, okay. I thought you meant. Okay. Taji Chestnut, he, him, co-chair, PCCEP.
Elliot Young, co-chair, PCCEP. Howdy.
Can you guys call on people? I think it's
Yeah,
easier.
Claudia.
for people to notice.
Hi, welcome everyone. I'm Claudia. I am the project assistant for PCCEP.
Judith.
Hi, everybody. I'm Judith Mowry, and I am also a staff person support for PCCEP.
Anne.
Hi, Ann Campbell, PCCEP.
Amy.
Hello, Amy Anderson here, Chair of the Behavioral Health Subcommittee.
Joanna.
Hi, I'm Johanna Brenner, she, her, and I am working with Portland Metro People's Coalition. I'm a volunteer on the coordinating committee there.
Thank you. Barb.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Barb. Raina is she, her pronouns, and I'm a member of the Behavioral Health Subcommittee for PCCEP.
Emery.
Good evening. My name's Emery, he, him.
Brandon.
Hi, I'm Brandon Farley. I live in the Northwest District.
Barbara. Boshinsky.
Barbara Boshinsky. I'm with Portland Cop Watch. She, her.
Sean. Thank you. Sean.
Sean Campbell with the Training Advisory Council.
Rochelle.
I'm Rochelle. I'm with the Mental Health Alliance community member.
Thank you. Asena.
Hi, everyone. My name is Asena Lawrence. My pronouns are she, her. I work for Mayor Wheeler. I have a new title. I'm his Director of Community Safety.
Caitlin.
Hi, I'm Caitlin. I use she, her pronouns. I'm just here as a community member today.
Great. Thank you. Welcome to everyone. So Taji's going to facilitate this first part.
Yeah, Barb, you had that question. Do you want to ask it, or is it no longer a question?
Let's call it no longer a question for right now because it was a question for the meeting.
Okay, cool. So last time, I don't know if everyone was here last time, but we had a work session a few weeks ago. We were going to do it again the week after, but we realized it's too many. We're having too many meetings without having enough data to look at from the forums or from the forms. And we now are meeting, obviously, and so the first part will be focusing on the town hall, planning out some of it. We had a format suggested to us by the staff from the Mayor Wheeler's office, Samuel Diaz. He suggested this format for us, and it sort of works under the impression that we'll be having a panel, and sort of want to throw out any format suggestions that folks may have, and I'm going to tell you what we have for the format now. It was going to be a panel for the first, I want to say 45 minutes. It was going to be a 2-hour event, first 45 panel with community organizations. I believe it was 6 in total, 4 in total. But we've not received any formal proposals from any of these organizations. Formal. Judith, would you be okay muting yourself? Thank you.
I apologize.
All good, no problem. And so we haven't received any formal proposals. We wanted to try to get some, thank you for putting the model there. We wanted to try to get some formal proposals from the organizations or panelists, but we haven't received any yet. And then you could see here, we were going to open it up for community dialogue, suggesting this format with a jam board, which is this technology that you can guide conversations around with maybe some questions and capturing the notes. And then doing some breakout rooms maybe for that as well, and then doing some closing remarks. So that was sort of the bare bones model. One other suggestion we got was, I can't remember exactly who said this, and I apologize, but in regards to the discussion for the 45 minutes, the longer part, someone suggested doing like what should PPB start doing, what should they stop doing, and what should they keep doing. And so we thought that might be a good way to like start questions. And then one more thing I forgot that Elliot mentioned to me today is that we were also going to find a point in which it might be probably before if there's a panel, it'd be before the panel or after the panel, before the discussion for sure. That's all I know. I don't know if there'll even be a panel depending on if we can get the organizations. We asked for outreach from staff for that, so we don't know the status of it though. And it's a little bit last minute on our behalf for that. So there's likelihood we might not get all the panelists we want. So I'll sort of stop there. I just wanted to know if anyone has any questions or thoughts now on like formatting and like how we can best have a meaningful dialogue for the town hall. Any suggestions? Do people like the suggestion I suggested? I didn't suggest it, the suggestion someone gave, I can't remember the name of. Yeah.
I think that was Judith that suggested that keep, that one. And I really like that. That could be a really good opener or add to, lively discussion.
Yeah.
Johanna, is that your hand that was up?
Yeah, I don't know quite how you get recognized. I can't find the thing, the hand.
You can just do this. It's
okay. Okay. Yeah, I think it's a little confusing because what we kind of got through the map app thing was the idea of comments, so I personally did not realize that you were looking for proposals of alternative programs or that kind of thing. There wasn't really anything there. It was more just kind of, and particularly because the only alternatives that actually were there were what the initial presentation had as, complementary services. So
could I comment on that real quick?
So I'm just saying, I think if there was some kind of call, I think there are organizations that might be willing to, especially if you weren't required to submit some kind of full-blown proposal,
Right.
like here's exactly what you should do, but sort of ideas or proposals in that sense. So I just like to learn. That's my initial response to your idea of the town hall.
Yeah, I had drafted an email that was supposed to go out to community organizations that asked precisely that question. And then we were going to put those ideas up on the website. I wrote to Theo to ask him whether he received any, but he's out. And so I haven't received a response back. But I think we definitely need to do that, make sure that that message goes out there, and that we have some more concrete proposals. I agree, looking at the responses, some are more specific, but a lot of them are very vague, and it's hard to do much with those responses.
And so, that probably won't come within the next week is the problem. There are some, I could expect maybe one or two if that outreach was already done, but if there hasn't been outreach yet for those specific proposals, even though we wrote the letter already, then we might get that information after the town hall, which is still fine because we can still incorporate it into the process as we build recommendations and sort of including any substantive alternatives people. And you're right, proposal is sort of maybe a misnomer for what I meant. It's more about like literally just like an idea of something. It doesn't need to be a flushed out budgets or anything like that, and it also in the map app itself was supposed to be updated with new questions. I don't know if those updates were made. And if not, that is something beyond our control. We've asked for the updates and we've wrote the language for them. So it's not a matter of, it's a matter of the map app team and a matter of that. So we can't control that, unfortunately. But we can do is it might be possible for us to just sort of put together from our understanding on a national level of what other police bureaus have looked at in the sense of alternatives, and just sort of lay those out. It wouldn't be, yeah, that's the only thing I could think of as like a way we could have something to show to the community at the town hall come next Thursday, I believe.
Well, there is, you know, reading through the feedback, people have given examples of alternatives, and the number one is the Portland street response. That, you know, it's an example from Portland, just started. There's the Cahoots that it's modeled on. So I think that there are some concrete ideas out there, and it's just a matter of actually getting them formed. But I agree with you, Taji, we might not get them by next week, but I think this is like a staged process. And the first stage, this is like collecting some information. One thing I think is really important is, before we have this conversation at the town hall, presenting some actual data as context, because what you get in the comments is a lot of, I experienced this, I experienced that. And I think looking at the data in terms of crime, property crime, violent crime over the last 30 years is very informative of the actual situation. So we're not relying on media accounts, which don't often give a broader context. So want to provide that data. And Taji and I, today we're going to be digging into the data, but then Taji and I want to actually go through all of the responses and try to come up with broad categories of where they fit in, what kind of proposals they're making, so that assuming that everyone will not have read all of the comments, which I think we could safely assume by the town hall.
So does that answer your question, Joanna? Okay.
It answers. So what I'm hearing is that possibly there will not be a panel, but possibly a presentation that says, we want to remind people about some of the data. Here are a few of the kinds of things, something along that, a summary, and then a kind of opening it up for people. I just like to know, because honestly, as somebody in the community who has ideas about this, you know, you and many of us do, it's not clear, you know, how we ought to approach the town hall and how we could be most productively useful to you all. You know, it's still very.
Well, what do you think? I mean, basically, this is for us to decide what the town hall should be. So do you think it would be better to have groups present, or to do this other thing?
Would it, one other point I would like, would it be good to have, you know, if we're having a conversation of start, stop, and do, like, what things should they stop? Like, maybe it would be good at that presentation to do an overview, like the Court Patrol presentation offered on the map app, but maybe an altered one that PCCEP makes or puts together. That, and this is a tight timeline, so we might have to work with what we already have, just adding on some more though, and make it more just general. So people can, like, we'll start with that, we'll start with the data, and we'll start with the categories of responses we've gotten, and then sort of open the conversation from there. And maybe we'll leave on the screen like the main functionalities of PPB, for example, that might help people guide conversations or something like that. Would that be?
Yeah, because maybe other people have ideas about this. I don't want to take up all the space here.
Are there other ideas that anyone has, or recommendations about? In the chat, this is from Sam Diaz, this suggestion for these community groups that he thought about inviting: Imagine Black, Unite Oregon, Northwest Coalition of Neighborhoods, Business for a Better Portland, and Central East Side Industrial District. You know, obviously the list could go on, and the problem with having any list is we're going to be leaving people out. But I guess on the principal point of, do we want to have groups or no groups?
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Okay. And will you have any sense by March 4th of sort of the big buckets of comments?
Yes, I mean, in fact, this today, in a few minutes, what I want us to do is to precisely look into it. But I've already looked through the data, and that's something that Taji and I will do before March 4th and present on what the big buckets are, what the categories are, and what's the general, sense of where the data is heading. I see Amy, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I'm working on my phone, so it takes me a little longer to find the features. My thought was, have you heard of a World Cafe model? Have you heard of that
No.
process of doing conversating? Basically, what you do is you get a whole bunch of people in the room, and then normally people would be separated by, at different tables, and then questions would be given to each table that were kind of all the same, and then each table had a chance to discuss the question amongst everybody that was there. And Judith was recommending that we do something like that previously, but you got to have enough members, you got to have enough people to make it worth your while. So we could collectively create a breakout rooms for a World Cafe model, depending on who came, and then we could let people know what the topics, the main topic headers were going to be, so that if they wanted to sit in on a particular group, they could or not. You know what I mean? Just kind of make it simple for people to participate, in other words. Rather than a giant town hall on Zoom, what about we do some breakout groups, to discuss certain topics.
That sounds like a great idea, and I'd be a fan of it. We could still do the same questions, just have the groups separated, and then we would need facilitators in each of the rooms as well.
Exactly.
So,
and then we could come back at the end. We save time to come back. You have a scribe, you have a timekeeper, blah, blah, blah. But the scribe then would present back to the main group what that group talked about. So then everyone gets to hear it.
Right. And Joanna, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, just real quick. I was just going to say that's exactly how Mayor Wheeler and Commissioner Hardison organized those 2 or 3 listening sessions that they had. I don't remember when they had them, but it worked really well, and you got to go, there were 3 different topics, and there were multiple tables for each one, and each topic you had a certain amount of time, I think maybe 15 minutes, maybe 20, and then you could just rotate through. So everyone got a chance to, with different groups of people, discuss the same things. And then the facilitators, in that time, the facilitators collected the info, but there wasn't time for them to do any reporting back. So you could think about that. Maybe there could be some report back. But
I think report back to be cool.
As a person, as a group, I thought it was extremely effective. And I agree with, I guess it was Amy who proposed it.
So what about the 3 questions being the ones that Taji mentioned? Like, what are the police, what was it? What are the police doing?
Judith said it. And sorry, Judith, did you want to talk to us? I think you were about to, then Barb, I see you right after.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, I don't have a hand raised, come as a co-host. I just wanted to offer to, I have done lots of different variations of this. As a facilitator, I'm happy to help set up anything. We can do anything from self-facilitated groups to having a PCCEP member in each group. Because I also think that's good, because then they hear what you're doing, and maybe even try to recruit a Senna and Sam to be in a group, but I think we could do something really great that way.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
So-
Thank you, Judith. Barb?
So I went to some of the Hardesty Mayor Wheeler events, and I like the idea of having the 3 questions that Judith presented, because the one thing I didn't like when Hardesty and the mayor were setting it up was they gave you cards to basically vote on which topics. So there were like 9 topics and they narrowed that down to 3. So that was kind of wonky. So I like the idea of already having the questions decided on.
So it sounds like if we do that, that the community group presentation would kind of not be necessary. Like, I think we could present some of the data from the MAP app. We could present the data on crime and violence in Portland. And we could sort of give an overview of what the police currently are doing, what Core Patrol is, and then just jump into those breakout sessions and then have time for reporting back. I think that would work well.
So my other idea I just want to throw in there too is that, oh wait, sorry.
Emery?
Yeah, so I think so we kind of have one proposal going for how to set up the town hall, which is like what we just were talking about. I kind of think people have already put a lot of their comments into the MAP app. Plus people have, the city's kind of in this debate right now. There's a lot of people, you had 70,000 people saying back in June or whatever, saying, hey, we want like less policing. This, this isn't working, blah, blah, blah. And then obviously you have a faction, right, who's saying like, we want the same amount of policing or more policing. So I kind of feel like for a town hall, it would be smart to just, with Core Patrol services, just be like, all right, let's take 2 proposals. One where we like keep it the same, which is what some people say they want to do, right? Like, oh, we need the police to show up whenever a business calls them to come address a homeless person or something. And then we have a proposal like, what would it look like if we cut Core Patrol services in half? What would that look like? And then you have like a few people debate, or like reason that through somehow in some sort of like forum. Because I feel like we already know the sides of this. We don't need to like be in small groups talking it out, do we? I mean, hasn't the city kind of been doing that? That's kind of that's kind of like an alternative proposal. And I'm curious what people think about that. You know what I mean? I feel like we need to put more concrete proposals out there. Like, here's what would happen if you cut it in half. Who wants to argue for that? What would the problems be? What would the pros and cons be?
Yeah, I think when you began talking, I think I began understanding you were like going for that debate idea. I'm only skeptical about that specific idea. I very understand where you're coming from in the idea that we don't want to just like continuously hear the same ideas a lot. Like, I get that. And I do think there is also benefit to sort of hashing and discussing the sort of topics more and doing it more organically than the way MAP app's set up. And I'm just worried about a debate idea and like 2 diametrically opposite types of solutions, as opposed to like the fact that this is not going to be diametric. It's going to be like much more compromise based for PCCEP, and the recommendations we'll have to make cannot be cut PPP's budget in half. They would not take that seriously, unfortunately.
No, yeah, I'm not
like,
proposing. I'm not proposing that. I'm proposing like whatever the sort of like, of course you're not going to do that right away or whatever, but it's more like the city's already funded. The city has already funded like 6 Portland street response vans or whatever. Yeah, there's 1 right now, but they've got the funding for 6. So that's going to happen, you know? So why are we sitting around gonna, like, we should take that into consideration. And then the question should be, well, do we want 20 of those? You know, do we want 15? And what would that do to Core Patrol? Would that cut, you know, would that cut the PPB's need to respond by 30%? And if so, what does that look like? You know, like, I think being more concrete about that kind of thing and being like, you know, you know, and so
I see what you mean. Yeah.
I don't want,
No,
I don't want a diametric debate. I want,
Yeah.
but I also don't want just like a discussion that generates these like, you know, ideas that are just coming. You know, we should have like people who have like a structured idea of what's workable and then sell that to the mayor with public, you know, if the mayor wants real feedback, it's like, all right, here's a structured thing that people will actually get behind. There's disagreement, but here's how people plan to work through that or whatever. I don't know. So I'm just
no, I
saying,
hear you, and I see, and I agree with you, because it would seem superfluous to discuss and upend the same topics again and again. I see what you mean, and we do have street response already, so it's not like we'll be funding a new street response. It's a matter of like, yeah, what would it look like to increase? I think there is a lot of interesting ways to discuss how we could like make a scenario-based discussion with the community about potential models. And we can do that without needing expert organizations to craft something. We could do that here. We could do that, Elliot and I, to just have something to give to the community for the town hall. Sean, so thank you so much, Emery, for the feedback. And I think we should keep that conversation going. I want to, Sean, sorry, you can go ahead.
No problem. I just wanted to say I really like the breakout room, especially with facilitators idea, because when you have the big town hall kind of thing, there's a lot of members of the community who feel like they can't speak in that large of a public group that will speak in smaller groups. I think, I'm sorry, Emery, I believe your name. I'm sorry, I'm on the phone while I'm parked alongside of the highway, so I can't see everything on it. But I do think it's a worthwhile thing of looking at what questions you ask and targeting more instead of like, hey, what works for PBB, what doesn't, which I think has been kicked around a lot. Have questions like, what would you like this public safety to look like in 5 years? And that's something that can more get the thought about, hey, what kind of reforms do we want? What kind of things do we need to start thinking about when it comes to these reforms? And it would be difficult because you're going to have facilitators kind of make sure people don't get off on their own personal story tangents and more focus on the idea of what do we want to see in 5 years as a community.
Yeah. And I think that's the sort of the crux of the conversation that should be happening for us. And I like pivoting to that from where we, in regard to questions, I like the model still of the World Cafe and everything, but making the questions and the scenarios, maybe throwing out some scenarios for folks to like think through. Thank you, Sean. Sorry, was there anything else, Sean, you were saying? I don't want to cut you off.
Nope, you got me. Thank you.
Cool, thank you, Sean. I think it was Elliot. Emery, I don't know if your hand's still up, but Elliot.
Yeah, so I mean, we are going to move on to the data soon, so I don't want to say too much about that, but looking at the data, I think, you know, like Emery was saying, it's pretty clear sort of what the various options are. There are a small number of people, at least the responses I look for, who think like we need to increase the police. There are many more people who are talking about defunding. The biggest group of people is saying we need unarmed alternatives. And I think that that's like really, in the end of the day, that's what it's going to come down to, is unarmed alternatives. Then the big question is what percentage, like how big of an unarmed response, and is that money coming from the police budget or is it in addition to the police budget? Those are the questions that we're going to end up with, and I think that that's where the debate is going to be. I don't think, you know, the people who are saying like we just need to eliminate the police bureau tomorrow, and the people who are saying we need to increase the police budget and increase the size of the police force from the data looks like the extreme ends and is not where the debate is. The debate is really what kind of unarmed response and then what size of unarmed response. So should we turn to the
There was one more question from Caitlin, I
Caitlin,
think,
yeah.
and then Rochelle and Judith as well, I just saw. But then right after that, we'll pivot and we could probably get some good combo. Sorry. So I think it was Caitlin, then Judith's hand's not up. Okay, so Caitlin, you're good.
Yeah, I'll be really quick. I just wanted to recommend, whether or not there's any kind of presentation format, it would be nice to have representatives from like Portland Street Response or Clean and Safe, in particular because those were mentioned as like complementary services or potential alternatives. It would be nice to have reps there so the community has a chance to ask questions of like, what are these programs, and raise any concerns they may have with them or whatever. That's all.
Yeah, I do think it'd be great to have both of the representatives, both representatives from the groups in the presentation. I'm wary of like saying if it's working or not at this early of a stage for like street response, but I know the director, she was, I think Robin was her name, and she was very like passionate and had great conceptual ideas of what the future of the police street response would look like. And so I think she would be a great addition to that night. And I think that it might be good to like not have organizations and panelists, but have that set of information, the data, the presentation, hearing from street response and Clean and Safe, and then transitioning from that to the World Cafe with these scenarios and questions that are more focused on. So yeah, I think I'm hearing that as like the basis of where we're going, and so we'll work offline to get something together and know that it'll be hopefully encompassing all these ideas into a format or whatnot. And I'm thinking we can post it when we could probably post the questions and the scenarios as soon as we make them, and so that people could see them before the meeting as well. So let's from here, thank you, Caitlin, for bringing that up. From here, Elliot, I think you're gonna, how much time do we have? It's only been 38 minutes. So yeah, now we can probably go to the breakout situation.
Sorry, could I just add one little thing right there?
Sure.
If you're gonna make Clean and Safe and Portland Street Response, could you try to get a representative for the PS3 program as well?
Sure.
Because there are a lot of groups that do support that. And
yeah, I think it's good to have people on hand to be able to answer questions from the community. So let's turn to the data.
TIP? Also.
TIP is what?
Those people that come out when somebody gets killed. Maybe?
Remember we did a recommendation on that in January.
Okay.
No, I don't see that as an alternative to policing.
But
well, true. Never mind then.
Okay. Sorry, Barbara. I just
Asena, I see your hand up.
Thanks, Elliot. When you develop your list of who from the city that you would like to attend the town hall, could you let me know? I'll make sure to reach out to them with you all and strongly request that they attend the town hall next week.
Great.
Yeah, we'll send it probably tonight so you can get it as soon as possible. I feel bad already giving bad notice. Hopefully they're available.
I think a week is okay.
Okay.
This is important.
Yeah.
And it is a week, so they will have a little bit of time. And if they're not able to attend, then the next best person. Yeah, but I would really like to ask them myself. Unless you would like to reach out to them, I'm very happy to do it and then CC you and Elliot.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Thank you, Asena.
Cool.
So let me just get a sense. Have any of you been taken any time to look through the responses on the map app? Just so you could raise your hand or nod or something. Yeah, Barb has, Emery has, Johanna has. Okay, so a few of you have, Caitlin has, Sean has, good. So I also did that, and I thought it would be worthwhile to take 10 minutes now, and we could do breakout rooms, and I've created groups. This is going to be like a class, just so we could start to start to see what the responses are. Obviously, this is not scientific, but I did this for the most recent ones. This is for starting at the beginning. If you go to the map app, and maybe Taji, if you could put the link into the chat. If you go to the map app and just click on Core Patrol, you can see all the responses there. And starting at the beginning with Alan Kessler, I've created groups of 10. So I did this, started to try to track this on a spreadsheet, and I'll just share with you the link. It might be helpful for you to see the categories that I started to just a second, I'm gonna make it.
So we're really just putting our sleeves up, everyone, and getting it's a work session. So we'll be going, yeah. And I don't know how we'll separate the room. I don't think
yeah, I mean, we could do that into breakout rooms, but this is the link for the shared Google spreadsheet, which basically, I just came up with these categories as I was looking at it. The issues that came up, the ones I looked at were Portland Street response cahoots, like do people say yes? Others, alternatives, clean and safe, PS3's navigation center, do people say yes or no? Then there was lots of people who had an opinion about defunding the police. Yes, or some people were saying no. There are some people alternative to unarmed response. And of course, some of these are overlapping. Some people started talking about housing, which is not directly related, but obviously connected. Police should focus on crime. Police should focus on unsafe drivers. We should train police more. Police not effective, etc. So there are lots of different categories you can come up with. I think after looking at all of this, we're going to have to refine the categories and see which ones are overlapping. But it might be helpful just to think in those terms. So let me see if there are any questions before I put people in breakout rooms, and then your task will just be with the one other person to read through those and have a discussion. Yes, Joanna.
The compilation you just described, is that posted somewhere? Or
Yeah,
you just
I put the Google spreadsheet in the chat. So
I couldn't find it. Sorry. Okay.
I'll
go back.
Oh,
now I got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I got it.
It should be accessible to everybody.
Elliot, I don't have the breakout room capability on this meeting. That is something that I'm actually meeting with someone from our office to.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I've been trying to look for it for the behavioral health and subcommittee meeting for next week. So someone from our meeting, I'm actually going to do a cross training with her tomorrow about how to add it, because from now I can't even see it on our PCCEP plan for Zoom. So I'm actually going to have that discussion with her, and she's going to cross train me on how to add the breakout rooms and how to add it to our plan, because of now it's not on our plan from what I can see. So I've actually been having a discussion with that and how we can get that.
Okay, so we don't have that capability. That's helpful to know. So what we could do is we could just assign people, and maybe they could take a few minutes and on their own look at it, and then we come back and have a conversation. I mean, I just wanted to give a sort of broader sense so that we're not just all looking at the same 5 responses. So I will just break us up into groups. So Sean and me can do group 1, Joanna and Emery group 2, Taji and Barb group 3, Judith and Amy group 4.
Elliot, I'm going to have to pass. I can't see on this phone to read.
Okay.
So I can't participate in this one.
Okay. So Judith and why don't we do Judith and Barbara group 4, and then Claudia and Brandon group 5, Rochelle and Asena group 6, and Caitlin and Nicole group 7. So is there
I'm sorry, Elliot, was this Barbara or Barb with me?
Barbara.
Great. And how are we going to do this without the breakout room?
Well, actually, it just means that you look at what names you're supposed to be doing. So starting, if you open up that Core Patrol responses, starting in January, whenever it opened, is Alan Kessler. And then you could count down 10 names and you could find the group that you're looking at. So we could just spend, 5, maybe even 7 minutes looking at these, and basically it's just to spread us out through these responses. And so we'll spend a few minutes looking at these, and then we could regroup and have a discussion about what you discovered. All right.
Mhm. And you're dividing them by 10s, right? So the first 10, group 1 is the first 10?
Right.
Yeah.
Are you asking to make comments on the core patrol services section of the map? Or
Not to make comments, just to look at the comments, the public comments. So is that clear where everyone can find those?
Nope.
Okay, let's, the link is, Taji put it, I will put it here. And I think you hit comment, and then there'll be something on the upper right that says public comments. So if you click on PCCEP Core Patrol Services, which has 127 comments, you'll be able to see the public testimony.
I've gone ahead and added the link to the chat as well, so that will take you directly to the comments.
Yeah, and if you scroll down to the bottom, it starts January 16th.
Like I'm in class.
I'm not seeing anything.
You're not seeing any of the comments? What
No,
are you?
I just have the screen. So do I have to click on it myself or something?
Yes.
So click on the roadmaps testimony.
Click on PCCEP Core Patrol Services testimony. Do you see PCCEP Core Patrol Services?
Oh, I see.
Elliot,
CPS. That's
Elliot,
what
sorry.
the CPS is.
Elliot, I'm not seeing that Caitlin person. Also, how do I know what, did you do the first 10 or was it the?
I think I did the first 10. Basically, it might not matter so much. Just go in and look at a bunch of comments and just try to spread yourself out.
I started with Kate Dickerson or something and then goes up.
Oh, I'm so dumb. Yeah.
No, you're not.
Sorry. No, I literally, it's awkward on my iPad, so I just messed up formatting, my bad.
nothing's coming up when I click the comments.
You don't see.
Oh, well, some of them are coming up. Others are coming blank or showing up blank.
Yeah, just look at the ones you could see, I guess.
Okay.
Hey, Elliot, I just left you a direct message. Would you mind repeating what number Rochelle and I are? I'm sorry, I was feeding my dogs and I couldn't hear the number.
I don't even remember, but why don't you take 7?
Okay, thank you, and I apologize.
That's okay. There'll be extra credit at the end of the session.
So you said I was 5, but what do I do with
You
that
know
number?
what? Just scroll down, read,
Yeah, just
read,
look
read
through
5
them.
comments. Let's not make this more complicated.
It's difficult because I think the it's not in the order that initially was there, so it's like not right, but it's not no one's fault. It's just the way that thing formatted it. So I'm just writing a few in the Excel spreadsheet for reference that are not already there. So if you want to do that, you can. You don't have to.
Oh, okay.
Wait, are you expecting us to fill out the spreadsheet?
No, don't. I think that's like
Just
next
wanted
next
clarity.
level. Just read through a few and we'll discuss.
That's a big one. Jay Simpson.
Okay, so just finish up the one comment you're reading now, and so again, this is not scientific. This is meant to just dip our toes into this this feedback and share what we learn, the impressions we get, the range of comments. So why don't we just start? Sean, you could start, and we'll just go around and give us like 20,000 feet level view of what you saw. We can't hear you. Maybe there's something with your mic.
Could you go to somebody else first, please?
Okay,
Sure.
I gotta find a place to pull over here real quick.
Okay, yeah, don't drive. and talk.
Could you wait for, can I go later? Thank you.
Sure, yeah, we'll get back to you later. Joanna?
Yeah, I saw three main things in that the vast majority of the comments I read were about, we're not from calling for more policing. There were quite a few comments. I was in the early stages about militarization and real concerns about that. That was a very large number of comments. There were a lot of, as you said, Elliot, favorable comments about Portland street response in recognition of the fact that so many of the things that they're responding to are things that don't require, as people, some people put, a person with a gun. And there were a number of people who just more generally said, people, they didn't necessarily Portland street response, but a lot of people talked about the problems that they see in their neighborhoods, but called for disarmed people to come and deal with those. I would say that's what I saw in the short time I had. So that would speak to the SWAT team. That would speak, for example, I think people responding to the tactical, whatever it's called there, the tactical support unit or whatever.
Okay, thank you. Emery?
Yeah, hey, pretty sure I read the same chunk that Johanna read, and
Similar.
yeah, like 7 or actually 8 of the comments were, 8 of the 10 were kind of like, yeah, reform this, less armed response type of thing, or basically like, I'm mad at what the police have been doing and how they've been behaving, and etc. And then there was one person who's like, arrest all the rioters type of, like more cops, whatever. And then there's one person who's kind of like, I just want a traditional beat cop type of thing. I want a cop up on a horse riding around with a cowboy hat, nice comment there. So yeah, that's my analysis.
Barb?
I didn't exactly get to the 10 and read them, but I read a few of them around there because every time I went backwards, I had to go find it again, and that was too annoying. One person talked about it was important to have a lot of visibility downtown, but kept referring to needing the visibility of the core patrol services. So I'm not sure, I think she really meant police officers, but it wasn't really clear from how she was writing it. And then the other stuff was more training and not expecting cops to be social workers.
Okay. Taji?
Yeah, I actually had some really interesting ones in my opinion. I'll just say that most of them, so there was one that said they wanted body cameras, one wanted better relationships, two of them wanted better relationships, 3 of them wanted more, what was it? Oh yeah, be more in the streets, I guess. And then one guy went hecka off, and he was like saying that there needs to be more police and that they don't punish hard enough. And I don't know if you saw that one, but it's a pretty winded one. And then it said PCCEP's a problem and I don't know why he critiqued that. And so it was a lot of thoughts were being had by this individual. So it gives me an interesting picture into it.
All the field. Okay, Judith?
I started from the bottom up and I got some very wordy people, so I didn't go through as many. But what I saw was somebody who wanted police to be completely disbanded, and then somebody who wanted the police to enforce the criminal element living in tents and felt like most of the people living in tents were doing it by choice. Other person who wanted regular patrols in the neighborhood, their neighborhoods as deterrence. And other people were basically saying they wanted police to investigate and prosecute people for property crimes, criminal activity in their neighborhoods, but other people saying they wanted to make sure that the police were not being used to assist people having a mental health crisis in the community.
Great, thank you. Claudia?
Hi, everyone. You said my name, right, Elliot?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I was reading one of my last comments I read. It was from a BLM protester, and really what I got out of it is that most like experiences, it seems that like 911 calls really are related to like homeless situations. So they're asking more for like administrative leaders to take a different alternative to those type of calls. And and I know like we have the behavioral health unit. So that's kind of where my head went when I looked at this comment, is just maybe working more towards those type of established departments in the PBB system already, to take on calls like what this person said in their comment when it comes to homeless calls coming into 911, and just kind of going that route let me see, I'm sorry, I'm trying to read their comment again just so I make sure that I'm sharing it correctly. Yeah. But yeah, so basically that's kind of what I got out of it, is how can we further like support like units like the behavioral health to take on situations like this when people are calling in about any homeless situations. I know they're pretty good at those type of situations where they support people in crisis.
Okay, so let's see, just in the interest of time, is there anything that you found that sort of is not repetitive of what other people have said, that struck you as different, or that you want to share? You can just raise your hand.
I'd just like to say that there are a lot of people who are supportive of the street response and the cahoots model, saying that like 75% of police work has nothing to do with crime, and that we should look at refocusing our efforts and putting the money in systems that are appropriate for what the people are doing and needing at this point in time.
Okay, I see Sean's hand, and I saw Barbara's hand before. Barbara, did you want to add anything?
No, I just realized that actually what I thought was an exception, I remember somebody already had said it, so I'm gonna.
Okay, Sean? You're on mute.
Nope.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you. Now we can't hear you. Are you talking? Yeah, we cannot. We're not hearing anything.
Perfect.
Yeah, we can't hear you. Sorry, Sean. Not hearing you. Maybe you could come back to us in a second. So, I mean, what I take from this exercise, and having looked at some of these before, and others of you have looked at these, is that there are those people out there calling for like, we need more police, we need to throw everyone in jail. That exists, but it's actually seems like a very small minority of people calling for that. And there's some people, as I said before, calling for the complete abolition of the police. But most people fall somewhere in between, and it's a question of what kind of alternatives they are supporting. And that could be like Claudia was suggesting, behavioral health unit, which is part of the police. Other people are saying, no, nothing, these alternatives should be outside the police bureau. And they point to the Portland Street response. And, other people very critical of the Navigation Center, Clean and Safe, any organization that kind of has connections to the police. But I think that is where the conversation is going to be. And it gets to, I think, Emery's point that he made before, that really looking through this data, we could probably come up with some likely scenarios of trade-offs, or say like, okay, if you want an unarmed response, what kind of unarmed response would you want? Would you want it to be housed in the police bureau? Would you want it to be not housed in the police bureau? Would you want it to be, account for 20%, 30%, 40% of the police budget, some kind of sense of scale? Because what we don't want out of this is to say, everyone says we want an unarmed response, but does that mean one van in the city, or does it mean a significant transfer of resources from the Portland Police Bureau? Or for some people, it means keep the Portland Police Bureau doing what they're doing and just get additional money. And I think that that's really where we need to understand where people are at. So what I propose in terms of the data is for Taji and I to go through it and try to code it to be able to present some kind of sense of numbers of where people are at the next meeting. And then Taji was suggesting that we also think about additional materials that we should be analyzing to try to get a sense of public sentiment. We talked about this before. This survey has 127, or this questionnaire has 127 people. That's ultimately not a huge number of people, but there have been lots of other surveys and opportunities for the public to respond. So one of the things we talked about was looking at the community survey response from 2019, looking at city council testimony from June of 2020. What other sources are out there?
Another one I would say that we might take a look at, and I don't know how much tangible quantitative data they collected, but they had listening sessions with Commissioner Hardesty's office last fall, and I'm assuming they gathered or it's those videos are up somewhere, and you can we can parse through that as well. We'll hopefully be hiring someone to do some of the more granular stuff, because it could get really complex with like 70,000 people emailing testimonies and whatnot. So
maybe we could ask Senna, do you know where the update, or Claudia, on that hire is?
It's going through the Office of Equity and Human Rights because they're in charge of PCCEP's budget. So I think Theo would, or maybe Judith might have the latest update.
Judith.
Yes, I've just been kind of waiting for a scope. I did ask for a name from procurement. I have a name, and as soon as I have a scope, I can get it out there.
Sam said that he's sending a scope of work a draft scope of work in the next couple of days.
Thank you.
So I guess the process will begin very, very shortly. And
okay,
because it's a single source contract, these things can go by really quickly. They don't have to go through like the long process of a typical RFP.
so what is the timeline for, like, when could we expect to actually get someone to work?
Well, I think that, hopefully we could get it through in 2 weeks. It's a little hard to tell where procurement is, but we will get it through as quickly as we can.
Mm-hmm.
So we will keep, I will definitely, we're working on it for sure. It has not fallen by the wayside.
Thank you, Judith, for all your work on that. Back to that question though. Yeah, sorry, Ellie, go ahead.
No, in terms of like next steps, so we have this map app, we're going to look at the data, we're going to present it, we're going to have the town hall, collect more information. This is understood as sort of the first phase. Then there's a second phase based on that. And the question is whether we think it's worth doing a broader survey that actually gives people some choices and is not like asking for qualitative, people to write their comments, but says, if you're for unarmed police, would you want it in the police department, out of the police bureau? What kind of scale are we talking about? Do people think that that would be useful to do, or do you think we'll have enough data after this first round to make recommendations?
Yeah, it might depend on where these people are getting access to the questionnaire, or if it's representative of the entire community, or if it's a selective pool of like people coming from someone's Facebook page who's represents a certain audience. I don't know.
Sure, that's important. Sean, I don't know if you can you talk now?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me this time?
Yeah.
Sweet. I stopped at a gas station that was apparently the only dead zone for miles. One thing that when I look at the comments and information that really strikes me, it's the lack of anything from a lot of the organizations that have been involved in this work for a long time. And I think that's kind of the hole where we could get a lot of this really quantitative, down in the dirt details kind of proposals that then you could ask the public what they think of, but there needs to be some type of getting that kind of information out of them.
Mm-hmm.
I think like organizations like Portland Cop Watch, I know, is full of opinions on this kind of stuff, and there's nothing from them kind of, and I don't know if it was because the question wasn't framed right, where they felt like it was the appropriate way to do it or what, but I think that would be one of the big steps that needs to be done to really get in a broad, detailed information and detailed proposals.
So is it clear, because I think some people, no one identified necessarily as being with a group, but do we know that no one from Portland Cop Watch responded? Barbara, do you know? Maybe you have a better idea.
I'm not sure. I didn't see anybody's name who's from the group, and I didn't see anybody directly from Portland Cop Watch. I didn't even know how to get on the app, so it didn't occur to me that would. I mean, I feel like we speak here so much, so.
Right.
So accessibility might be an issue.
Well, yeah, it was for me, but in general, I think Cop Watch already, we speak here, we send emails, and so I don't know. I thought this was like to get feedback from other people we don't hear from very much.
Yeah, that was the idea, but I take Emery's point of the proposals, like more detailed proposals, which we're hoping to also get. So maybe we could solicit those from Portland Cop Watch, et cetera.
Yeah,
Caitlin,
yeah, I see what you mean, because it's not just like a speak out or something. It's supposed to be like, what could we do?
Mm-hmm. And Caitlin?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I know there is a coalition of organizations who have been coming up with talking points and getting people to put testimony, but a lot of us haven't been indicating representation of an organization. So I guess my question is that helpful? Like, should some of our organizations be submitting like on behalf of our organizations?
Well, I think that this idea of getting organizations to provide very more specific, maybe not full-blown proposals, more specific ideas could be something, it should be something we do. So, and part of that, the community outreach was supposed to be done by the staff people. And it's not clear to me how much has or hasn't been done. But
well, Sam sent an email with what he's reached out to so far. So I think it's like a matter of we've reached out, and also maybe it's not clear exactly what we were asking for. We wrote that email, or Elliot wrote it and I edited the email to asking, like, soliciting specifically like concrete ideas that don't need to be like, once again, 3-4 pages or anything like that. We even like said, like, it doesn't need to be more than like 2 paragraphs. And so it's a matter of like hearing back, them being interested in like putting time and effort into that task specifically, because, PCCEP's not as ingrained in the community as some of the other organizations who might not want to just do anything we ask, or solicit them info on, like it's sort of a matter of their own prerogative. That's sort of what we're working with, unfortunately. We can get as much as we can. We've gotten what we've gotten. Anything the city's been given, we've been able to receive. So we got United Oregon's information they sent to the city. And we're similarly going to get the same one from PALF that they sent, and Reimagine Oregon. So we're trying on it. I can't sort of, I can be, as much as I want to just be like, please, can you give us to us? They can say no.
So I put the letter that we had drafted into the chat. Did anyone here receive it? Okay, so we have not done a good job with reaching out, and we'll have to talk to Theo and Sam about that, because that's like a breakdown in communication. This was supposed to go out to all of the organizations and those of you who are here should have obviously been among those. So in the next week we could do that, and we can continue to collect proposals as we go forward.
And this is ultimately to make recommendations to the Portland Police Association, or?
No, so all of this input will then be drafted in the form of recommendations that PCCEP will forward to City Council.
City Council.
So City Council basically will, because they decide the budget, can decide what to do with the police and their budget and new initiatives.
Well, if I could give just a little bit of input about this is for core patrol services, correct? Say that a large part of their demographic that they service are people on the streets, and I didn't see a real diverse range of opinion on this in these comments, and nobody, from what I could see, was from any of those agencies or representatives of people who are previously homeless or currently experiencing some at-risk. So I'd like to know some, maybe their side of the perspective of how they would feel about being, what type of response they would like in the homeless community.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I know that at least one of the people is
at least one, if not about 10 that responded.
Yeah. So there are people
with lived experience. Yeah. Sorry.
No, it's hard if people don't identify themselves to know that, but if we happen to know a few of the people, and so there is that. I think we could always
maybe that's an important distinction to keep out there, because that is a particular type of lived experience that is important in this matter, and maybe if that's formatted as part of the questioning, is have you experienced homelessness, or are you at risk, or gone through any nonprofit agencies for poverty, or because they're affected, they're hit more with this, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if we do a kind of anonymous survey where we could cross-tabulate based on those questions, we could get a lot more interesting information. The way this map app works, though, since you have to put your name out there, people aren't going to want to necessarily reveal their personal life histories.
You have to put your name, or is there an option of anonymity?
No.
It says you have to put your name. It says you have to put your name. Supposedly you can put a fake name, but people don't know that. And so we've gone back and forth with the city about this, and I've gotten nowhere. So they tell us that it's still optional, but you don't really know that if you go to the website.
So it's from my understanding, I don't want because the Senate did get it optional, but it just doesn't say it's optional, and no one knows that you don't have to put your name. Some people put their initials. Right? Am I right, Senna? I don't want to misspeak. I mean, I'm pretty sure it doesn't say so.
Sam's the one who's been leading this, so I'm sorry that I don't have more information on it. I've just relayed what I've heard in these meetings to my colleague. who's working with the people that develop this. I think the idea is that when people testify before council, they usually state their name. So that's why it's on the map app. And that's, you know, this is modeled after like the way that the city does land use testimony. Yeah, but it is optional. And yeah, I'm sorry for how challenging it's been.
I guess divulging
All
your
right.
history would be optional too. So, but I'm just, yeah, it seems like there's, I don't know, just not a range of diverse opinions on this, except maybe a couple who are for funding the police and against the riots and all that. But I don't think it's wholly representative of people I've interacted with.
I don't think 120 people that get online to do a survey is ever going to be representative.
Yeah, and that's why we have some really big requests from the city for data to better help furnish the pieces that aren't being, not the pieces, but the people who are not being represented in this specific format of information.
And in this, if we decide to do a second round survey, you could actually hire groups who specifically know how to go out and survey particular communities so that it is more representative. I mean, a survey like this, it's not at all scientific or representative. It's like who happens to be in certain networks and has the access to respond. And so we recognize that, you know, this data, we can't only rely on this data because it's not representative. Emery, you have your hand up, and then Judith.
Yeah, this has all been helpful. I'm still circulating in my head kind of what Sean said earlier about, you know, having some long-term stakeholders who really know these issues pretty well and having them really see if they can weigh in and kind of put forth a sort of, like I was saying, like a competing proposal sort of where from people who kind of understand some of the mechanics. So perhaps PCCEP's function can be to take some of this raw input that you're getting, that we've gotten in testimony to City Hall, that we've gotten in so many different forums over the past 8, 9, 10 months, and including in these comments. And so if PCCEP and these forums can be a time to kind of translate some of that raw desire, translate it through some of the mechanical difficulties that, you know, this presents. So for example, if you try to have these PS3s, these unarmed officers, well, there were problems with that, such as the PPA basically cut down their power immediately. Well, the city tried to implement them, and the PPA, and like someone like Dan Handelman and Copwatch could talk about that problem that the community would need to overcome in order to get its desire into actual effect on the street. And similarly, you know, Portland Street Response, it had PPA fought to get those employees into the PPA and the city then. And so those are like small mechanical things, political elements that actually kind of determine how this desire from the public gets turned into actual policy. And the mayor plays, and the elected officials play a role in that. And they can, you know, you can have all these people come in and say, you want this, and then the elected official doesn't step up to the plate and make it happen. They give in to the police on it or something. And so I don't know, like, I'll stop talking here, but this maybe that idea of translating this raw energy into really kind of more discernible overall visions, this idea of reimagining. What's the vision? It has to be discernible. It has to be concrete enough. Okay, that's my thought.
Great, Judith?
I'll be fast. And thanks, Emery. What I was going to say builds exactly on what you were saying. In my mind, it feels like we shouldn't try to think of both, like, if you're thinking of what would be the solution, if you feel like you have to have a solution, then we're limiting ourselves. So if what we say first is, what are the core things that people think a police force should take care of in their community? and then think about, okay, so there's all these other things that they are addressing that we really want to find alternatives to, because we don't want people with guns to show up for these things. Then you can sort of do more of a visioning session around that. Some of it will fit with what we've already done. But at that point, then I'd love to hear from the people who are doing mutual aid out in the community during COVID, during lots of times. There's people who are reimagining how to hold ourselves together as a community every single day right now. One last point too is I want to point out that we've had that storm. Some people didn't have power for a week. Elliot, I think you didn't have power. Were you one? I heard from a
No, I had power. I
well,
was
somebody
good.
didn't have it for a week. So, we really, like, people are dealing with a lot right now and getting vaccinated and all that stuff. So I would recommend another big push out on the, through the mail list. And I love the idea of engaging with the community-based organizations we did that for our strategic plan, to have focus groups, to do different ways of getting their members to weigh in. But I think then you're going to need, it can't be just what core services do you want. You'd have to find language that made sense to them.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're identifying now is the crucial piece that's been missing is an effective community organizing role. And as Taji and I said on many occasions, we cannot do that. Just simply don't have the time. So between Theo and Sam, they are taking on that role, but we can relay the need to make that happen. And it needs to happen right now, because we're collecting the input and we're supposed to come up with recommendations by end of March into April. And so we need that input now. So to the extent that those of you on this call are part of organizations or connected to organizations, please come up with those ideas, send them to Sajian and me, and we will make sure those are that those will be part of it. And if you know of other organizations or contacts that you have, just send them our way, and we will make sure those people get contacted. So Taji, any other thoughts?
No, I hope to see everyone at the town hall, and we'll send out, as soon as we have the questions that we'll be putting for the World Cafe together, we'll put them somewhere, maybe with the agenda, or like instead of the agenda or something, or with the agenda. That makes sense, actually.
So just to make sure we all are on the same page, what I think we decided was not to have community groups present, but to make sure that representatives from Portland Street Response, from Clean and Safe, from these various organizations are there. So Asena, we will send you that list of people who we would like to be present to be able to answer questions.
I'm going to say something here and now so that everybody hears it. I really hope we can get Robin Burrick from Portland Street Response and anybody else who wants to come along with her. But I don't feel like I get the same answers from Kristen that I do from her.
I'll ask that she come. I'll send Robin an email. Thanks for that feedback, Barb.
Great. Well, thank you all for sticking with us and reading through those responses. If you have time, I really encourage you to look through them. They are interesting, and do your own analysis. And we will see you all hopefully on Thursday next week at the town hall, and look forward to all of your great input there as well. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.